Alright, sup everybody, welcome back to the Path of Rage, and today we have a Star Citizen news roundup that is going to be quite a large one. We have some news on the 323.2 build, very small amount of news on that, but it is important and worth covering. There was a Star Citizen Live last week where they went into how they design and create ships in engine and how they work. And we also got both the Squadron 42 update and the Persistent Universe update for May, both of which we are going to get into. This is going to be a fairly long video, folks. There's a lot of information to go over, so grab a drink, settle in, and let's get into it. First up is the news on the 323.2 build, which will be bringing in the item banks and the freight elevators and whatnot. They have now been tagged committed. The following items: item banks, which are the kiosks you see in the various landing zones, allowing players to retrieve and store their FPS items in multiple locations. Freight elevators are going to be coming for 323. They're now committed, so we will be doing the physical loading of cargo on our hangars and landing pads and whatnot. We will be getting new missions for cargo hauling, which I'm looking forward to. Cargo hasn't been updated or really improved upon as a system in a very long time. We will also be getting personal and instanced hangars with this, which is again one of those huge things that we've been waiting for forever, where we will be able to, you know, be uninterrupted while we manage our cargo, our inventory, our vehicles. We'll be able to customize this hangar with some of our flare items. This will be our own almost home space, as it were. This is also committed for 3.23.2. This is coming in the 0.2 patch. However, while we wait for that 0.2 patch to come out, I'm thinking that we might hear more about it this week. That has been the intended goal so far, so we'll have to see. But there is one thing to note. Jake Acapella provided some clarity on the 3.23.2 patch of what's going in when asked is the vehicle calling functionality coming with the freight elevators. That's where your vehicle comes up from a separate elevator in the floor of your hangar, and he said no, that part will still be a separate delivery, and they'll call it out separately when that's slated to go in. So I think for right now, we're probably going to see ordering our ship from the in-hangar kiosk, maybe, and we'll see it appear for the time being until this feature can come in. I don't know for sure. We'll have to see how it plays. Evocati will get a hold of it fairly soon, hopefully, and since I am part of the Evocati and we are able to discuss these things, even if it's under NDA for video and all that, I will be sure to let you know what's coming. Moving on to Star Citizen Live, I'll put a link in the description below. There's really not a lot for me to go over on this one because there's not a lot of information about the game itself and the systems itself and upcoming features and patches, because this was a hour-long episode where Jared sat down with a couple of developers and they showed in tool how they make a concept vehicle, because it was just for an hour and it's never going to be in the game unless we, you know, continually spam John Crew like Jared said. This is to show you the process mainly. So I'll put a link to that below. You can see a bit of it in the background right here, how they're working. They discuss what various tools they use, how different people across the company all use different tools, and it's easier for CIG to create even more tools that allow the artists to use the tools they're already used to using and then combine them later. It's an interesting episode. It really, really is. But not much for me to summarize for you here. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, then link in the description below, and I highly suggest you check it out. It is interesting, but it's not a lot for me to cover here. So starting with the PU monthly report for the month of May, we're starting out with the AI features team, which after the launch of Alpha 323 supported the upcoming point patch and future releases, working towards consistent behaviors across combat scenarios, making sure that AI react in a believable way no matter the situation, improving perception reactions, cover use in different scenarios, and making an evaluation of all the combat elements to make sure that they're working as intended. They say that this is important to deal with the recent improvements to the hostility system. If an AI comes across two people fighting and they are friendly to both, doing nothing is not a valid response, just standing there staring blankly. So right now they're having it so the AI will run and cower when this situation arises, but they admit that this is not ideal and it will be changing for upcoming releases. The AI tech team supported Alpha 323 as well with bug fixes and optimizations, adding new metrics to understand the size of the Pathfinder requests, the number of active NPCs and Boids. Improvements were made to the functionality of NPCs pushing trolleys and using elevators, which we haven't actually seen in game yet, so I'm interested in seeing how that finally shows up in the PU properly. Smoother animations when NPCs move away from trolleys and improved functionality for how they're implemented. The AI tech team also began to work on allowing NPCs to understand how cover is being destroyed with the new system, and it'll prevent them from taking cover or trying to use unsuitable items for cover. And the ship AI team continued making improvements and bug fixes related to splines and backstrafing. The animation team apparently focused work on creatures in the month of May, including the Space Cow, the unreleased Quasi-Grazer as it's called. The character art team completed the high poly phase for 2 new armors, specialist armors, and continued updating utility armor, and are now developing a specialist heavy armor. They also supported requests for the new character customizer, working on new hairstyles for it, and they also made some progress on new creatures. On the ship side for Alpha 323, the ship art team delivered the Retaliator's cargo and bomber modules, which you can check out now in the current PTU, making sure they're up to gold standard. The MPUV tractor was also completed in May. Level 0 was completed for the Zeus Mark II. The team added a significant amount of work to drastically increase the detail in all the areas of the ship. It has been designed to bring out volume and highlighting details with the use of lighting. Animation passes were done on moving parts. Many secondary motions were added to communicate a sense of weight. And the next stage is for the wear pass and the completion of damage states. And material passes were done to make the ship look and feel more unified with other RSI ships. And 3 other stages also entered the white box stage, although they're not currently saying what those are. Moving on to core gameplay, they spent May closing out tasks and bug fixing for 323 and 323.1. With the team, part of it focused on final touches for the cargo feature, and the majority of the team moving on features for 4.0 and beyond. There's a big push for 4.0 for the end of this year, so that's not a surprising thing at all. They completed a significant amount of work on the multi-tool refactor planned for Alpha 4.0, so it'll be a more streamlined experience in using the attachments for the tool, how it relates to the key bindings on the mouse, and planning for remaining multi-tool refactor work, such as updated UI and battery consumption was completed. The team also looked at biome accumulation, bringing further Squadron 42 porting work over into the PU, and figured out how this feature will integrate into the weather systems that the planets have. Charge and drain has continued through pre-production and will move into the resource network to support multiplayer. And this is the ability to charge and drain distortion damage from ship components, and also I believe this will tie into charging and draining battery packs for the laser weapons in the game. quantum travel is currently being reviewed to make it more compatible with server meshings state currently right now. And support for Arena Commander's engineering mode was provided to allow items to be repaired once they reach 0 health. The core gameplay pillar was also improving profiling tools for performance of characters and vehicles and other entities for more high quality data. NPC's locomotion was improved, where sharp turns were completed, which will allow characters and creatures to switch directions more smoothly. Right now it can be very jarring from time to time. The inventory system is being adapted properly to server meshing and how that's going to work, as it will require a rework of its back end to scale appropriately. The initial version of the jump drive failure events was implemented in May. So now if a jump drive is disabled or damaged, you will be forced out of the jump drive quantum tunnel, which correctly aligns with the exit point in the destination star system. This was a big thing when we first were able to try Pyro and the jump points. You did not come out in Pyro at the exit that said was the Pyro Stanton jump point. You came out in Pyro where the entrance to that was in Stanton. So it's good to see that they're getting that fixed and tuned properly. The engineering gameplay found the team implementing power tools, which allowed streamlined power management of groups like weapons and thrusters, and the resource network was enabled by default in the main development branch for Star Citizen. So all the teams are able to work with it now and integrate it into the content. Now, I don't think that this means power tools, like usable tools like the multi-tool in-game. I think this means developer tools. Don't quote me on that, but I haven't seen any mention of new tools just for engineering. The transit area of Squadron 42 was looked at, and general support for the cargo system and the personal hangar updates were worked on by the team, with scope, technical, and planning discussions concluded for that refactor, which is now in active development. We know we're waiting for this. They've also done some work on an objects of interest mechanic. This will allow CIG to set up objects or possibly locations within the persistent universe or Squadron 42 with various parameters for that location or item and a special scan highlight. This will be applied when the object is occluded, so it will show one material within line of sight and then another one obstructed, and it will fade away as you get further away from it. This highlight, again, this is a nice little information. We'll have to see how this goes, but I kind of like something that, as long as it's not too intrusive, of something that's drawing your attention, like, hey, check this out, this you might want to look at this. They also did work on organizing information in FPS scanning with a new sound effect added while pinging, or attempting to ping, pardon me, while on cooldown. And the team completed checks between both the Squadron 42 and Persistent Universe streams, raising differences so that the Squadron 42 features can continue to be ported easily into the Persistent Universe. And finally, for radar and scanning, the team activated FPS radar and other experimental features across radar Arena Commander, and these are going to be reassessed closer to 4.0 for a potential preview again in Arena Commander with any changes that they put in there. I think the FPS radar scanning is something they're going to have to be careful with, because if it's too powerful, then we'll constantly be running around every 5 seconds spamming the radar button, kind of like you do in a lot of open world games, so you don't miss anything. I don't want that in Star Citizen. I want it to be a little less on the nose. I like the idea of having to actually search a little bit for the things you're looking for. The team concluded work on the first version of custom lobbies in Arena Commander. Aside from general bug fixing, they added team assignments. The players can arrange their teams in lobbies, and they added in the Gravlev race leaderboards. They completed the first pass on the EVA only map for FPS game modes, which is coming in the upcoming weeks for playtests. They began marking up Arena Commander locations with the room system, so they're compatible with radar. The Good Doctor was completed, with the rest of the rest expected to be finished in the coming weeks. That's one of the new maps that they added in. They approved and began implementation of a new front-end style for Arena Commander, complete with new animations. The brand takeover was approved using Drake, and now they have, this is a guide for future events. And they created 2 new strike teams, which were going to focus on 2 new modes, one of which is an FPS Horde mode. Now that's kind of cool. I'm a fan of Horde modes. They end up being a lot of fun if handled correctly. So I can't wait to see what they do here. They're saying that the initial setup and deliverable scope discussion and task breakdown has been done, and they want to use this mode to provide the rest of the developers with a quick and reliable and easy way to iterate on spawn closets, creatures, humans, AIs, FPS radar, the lot. Like this, they'll access this mode closer to 4.0, but they'll probably be putting it in as a publicly playable experimental mode. Again, an FPS Horde mode can go a long way to providing them with some excellent data and metrics. They added in quality of life initiatives for the developers themselves, for like new means of debugging, dummy players being able to dummy players being added to Arena Commander so that they can test scenarios with players that mimic, or actors that mimic players, and get an idea of what they might see before they release it to us. This is used for team balancing and scoreboard UI when a high number of players were connected, and it usually would have required multiple developers or multiple clients. Now they can get it done a little bit quicker without having to worry about bringing more people in. And they did a major team balancing and spawning change with 3.23.2 when it comes out, and assisted with the resolution of critical issues with analytics, including the creation of new gameplay analytics dashboard. They also made further progress on the mission system refactor, which we've had a taste of so far with the new Moby-Glass, but they're working on the implementation of the contract generator, the querying of active and completed missions, a rework for mission sharing, updating entities to support streaming, and refactored the mission system for both the mission broker and the contract template systems. And the data structures required to refactor this were provided to the mission design and content teams as well, so that they can get their input in on it as well, with further support being given to mission design for updated delivery contracts system that interacts with the freight elevators. Again, these freight elevators are going to be a massive change to the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this really kicks in. It's kind of underselling it to just say, oh, it's going to be a big change. Yeah, it is. It's going to fundamentally change the way Star Citizen plays in the future, and I'm really interested in seeing where they go with it. Is it going to be a good change? Is it going to slow things down too much? I guess we'll see. The gameplay features team was continuing, as we said earlier in the video, with working on the freight elevators, storage access kiosks, and the instance and personal hangars and commodity trading updates, with the UI flow being updated to provide a more streamlined experience when managing inventory and moving elevator or items using the freight elevator. And items like weapons, armor, and furniture can now be brought up on the elevator. So I think this means you won't have to throw them in boxes first, which is a good thing. You can also split stacks of items in the storage access area now and the front elevator kiosk UI. And they put in filters to help with that. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing these changes once they come out to us in future builds. the economy team put in an effort versus reward algorithm, which enabled them to determine the needed requirements for implementing this refactor for the mission system. When it goes live, the mission system will be based on time and difficulty to complete. So they have to establish sensible time estimates for hauling missions and finalizing the reward balances for like hunting the Copions and Marks. They're going to, again, they're going to need to balance this out. Currently, cargo hauling doesn't always provide the best return for your value whatsoever. It's, again, cargo hauling is one of those core gameplay features that has not seen enough love, so I'm glad to see them focusing on it right now. They're also designing a refactor for the shop system that will make trading in commodities and item shopping more flexible, and a progress was made on an algorithm to determine just the base price of commodities. I think that the economy is going to be more tuned and put into proper place and where we need it, much closer to a final release. I really think those people out there who think that CIG is going to fix the economy and get it balanced out while still working on main core systems are expecting a bit too much. Again, it's just my personal opinion. Sound off in the comments below if you disagree with me and why. I'd love to hear from you. Some interactables were finished last month with liquid cargo carrying containers being worked on, with all sizes moving from white box to final. Destructible generator was made for search and destroy missions, and they're currently working on the final stage of it with separate pieces that can fall off when you destroy it. And the lighting team spent a lot of time finalizing work on the instance hangars. Once they completed that, they're starting content for Alpha 4.0 and began a look dev stage on the new cave archetype. So we've got two right now, Rocky and Sandy. So they're apparently looking at a third. Well, I wonder what that'll be. Maybe a crystalline based type of cave. We'll see. The landing zone team fixed some bugs for the instance hangars as well before moving on to Alpha 4.0 mandates. But this included crafting the remaining stations for Pyro and working on iterating on new biomes as well from the organics team. The mission design team continued working on, again, cargo missions, specifically polishing the abandon flow. Is when a player decides they no longer want to play the mission, if they've already picked up a load, and the contract will give them a set amount of time to deliver it to a closer location and take less of a reputation in. I kind of like this. I really do. If you don't deliver the cargo in the allotted time, then it's marked as stolen. Fair enough. Planning was done for the mission system refactor, again required for server meshing, and this will bring the processes and pipelines used by the team up to date with current standards. Future plans and content is underway, with the mission design team being currently aligning with the tech design team on deliverables to see if more gameplay can be utilized with those deliverables in an upcoming patch. Pyro-based repair missions are currently being designed actively, involving replacing components containing radiation, power management via charge and drain. Again, this is a good thing that will give us more incentive to play in Pyro, even though it's going to possibly be, or very likely going to be, a high crime area with, no security keep players from pirating each other. So we're going to see. Pyro may end up being a very interesting place to play in. The narrative team looked into taking a larger role in the oversight and maintenance of social AI in the universe once 1.0 is released. This includes reviewing and adjusting civilian behaviors so that basically like the personalities and the culture of landing zones can come through, so that not everybody acts the same way. New behavior types are being prototyped that will appear throughout some of these upcoming locations and the current established locations. Again, cool, more variety the better. Social spaces have vertical slices being developed to test out larger scale mechanics such as the day-night cycles, variations in the vendor bartender behaviors, and some mission providers in a contained space to make sure that they're providing the content they want before expanding outwards. More work was done on the location stories for major landing zones, and team members working with design to tailor story to gameplay. And they're hoping that these missions will provide, players with exciting opportunities for adventures that really embellish the local storylines, which I like. We don't want everything to be... The mission is generic, no matter if you're on ArcCorp or Lorville or Microtech. Each of these places is distinctly different in a visual style, what they have in the stores or whatnot. So it makes sense that, the missions themselves in those areas would have local flavor. I'm all about it. The team also continued to support upcoming patches for narrative content for upcoming mission modules, in-fiction names and descriptions to items, and working with the core gameplay teams with future mechanics. The online services team focused on wrapping up social services backend refactor, which they hope will improve the performance and scalability of like chat and friends and groups. It will allow the service to handle more concurrent users and requests, and allow the team to add new features easily in the future. They spent a significant amount of time helping to stabilize 3.2.3, including 12 critical and 24 major bugs. That's the online desync, so keep working at it, guys. Thank you very much. And they're working on potential 4.0 release features like the mission system refactor, marker system refactor, and the player trade feature. Again, all of it in support of server meshing, because we all know server meshing is absolutely a core tech that all of this game relies on. So it's going to touch everything. On the R&D side, they continued to support 3.2.3. Again, not a surprise. Every team is focused on that. They added stochastic Catmull ROM texture filtering for the volumetric cloud rendering. Number of ray marching steps now scales with scene depth, to improve performance. And progress continued on the temporal render mode, with all confidence metrics and transmittance filtering receiving further tweaks and improvements. A first draft of this code was submitted for internal use. So when that comes to something that we can see, who knows? Tech design, of course, supported multiple areas of development for release patches, resolving bugs related to creatures, interactables, cargo, item banks, weapons, performance issues, you name it. It's the tech design team. They were involved in a variety of initiatives for gameplay related systems, internal tools, and workflows, like adding the ability for mission designers to change AI pilot skill levels depending on the mission, which could affect their accuracy. And they outlined requirements for the transit system refactor for code and code syncing for design. And they spend some time setting up test levels, harvestables, and the spawning system for creatures. To begin the work for interaction improvements for kiosks, they continued work on a new location distribution tool, which involved the initial rule set for location placements and improved workflow so that other teams can more easily merge their work together. And progress was made on internal scripting tools, allowing teams to sync with coders on slow workflows to help improve the user experience. The Montreal UI team worked on a bunch of mandates of tasks for cargo, ensuring all visual elements were polished and any bugs were fixed. and they collaborated closely with the core gameplay pillar on the resource network and jump points. And the UK-focused UI team continued updating the heads-up displays across the ships to improve their functionality and aesthetics. This one's going to take a while, as we know. There's a lot of ships in the game, and those MFDs are very out of date. So this is going to take a while. I'm glad to see that they're working on it still actively. The VFX team continued with, last-minute bug fixing and polishing effects where safe to do so for the 3.2.3 patch, while also completing effects passes on new vehicles for thrusters and damage, beginning work on jump point effects. They've had prototypes for a while, but now they're focusing on getting these effects fully functional and working closely with the VFX programmers and the VFX feature team to get this all implemented into the game. And finally, the web platform team concentrated on preparing for the anticipated traffic surges during Invictus launch week, which, yeah, there was a lot of traffic that came in for that 2-week event. They also planned and tested the platform's automated scaling schedule to handle the waves effectively. The launcher team focused on the new launcher, which is currently in development at 2.0.1. We'll see it come out in the coming weeks. Currently, right now, there is an Evocati test on the new launcher. I haven't had a chance to check it out as the time of this recording. I should be able to later on today, but again, I've had a rough weekend, so that hasn't been in my wheelhouse quite yet. They had to handle some other issues with authentication, error handling, and other bugs with this launcher, so they're hoping to improve it for a more stable and reliable experience for the rest of us, along with some improved error handling along the UI road for better performance, involving issues with expired sessions, and a bunch of errors and workarounds and troubleshooting guides were added to the knowledge base. And that is that for the Persistent Universe update for May. Again, quite a bit of information to go over, quite a bit more with the Squadron 42 update. So let's move on. On the Squadron 42 side now, first we start with the AI content team, which developed a new background manager to handle all non-scene scripted sequences. This has been stabilized or streamlined using the main mission manager, which stabilizes it for core flow operations and significantly reduces bugs. For the opening level, they completed the R&D for a new look at technology, which significantly improves visuals when NPCs look at the player, allowing them to glance weakly or stare strongly based on the situation, giving them a bit more of a realism and depth. Let's hope that they also don't have the blank stare either way. They made adjustments to the pathing of scripted walkers in Stanton to avoid critical scenes and improve visual consistency. As soon as I read this, I thought immediately of the fact that, yes, please do this, because the last thing I want is something that happened in Starfield all the time. You'd be in the middle of a dialogue with one of the characters and some random NPC would just come walking in between you. If they got rid of that for Star Citizen, bonus to them. They also added a suppressed greeting dialogue for NPCs after, workouts, so that they actually sound like they're out of breath, as opposed to, I just did 15 deadlifts, but yeah, I'm talking absolutely normal. They increased the chow line so that the AI feel more responsive and realistic, and facial animations and additional voice packs were added for further dynamic conversations, and janitor cleaning spots were adjusted so that they weren't in high traffic areas, bringing down bugs even further. And it only occurs now, like the spot cleaning regeneration, when players are not nearby. So it enhances both performance and realism. This means the cleaning up of the bottles and all that on the floor or whatnot. It'll get done, but not while you're right there. So, makes sense. The AI features team worked towards consistent behaviors across different combat scenarios, making sure that AI characters are believably reacting no matter what situation they're in. The team was improving and unifying perception reactions, cover use in different scenarios, evaluating combat elements to make sure that they're working as intended and not looking too janky or whatnot that'll take us all out of the immersion, because you know Chris is big on the immersion. One of the biggest and most important improvements was to the hostility system, which again we discussed also in the Persistent Universe update. So now AI will run in cower when they encounter two friendly players duking it out, or a friendly player and a friendly AI. They're going to change that in the future, but at least now they won't be standing there doing nothing, or looking at their mobi-glass while you two duke it out or fire at each other with guns. They'll at least respond in a somewhat appropriate manner. Just like in the Persistent Universe update, trolley use and elevator use by NPCs was worked on and improved. Again, a lot of the things that we're going to read about in Squadron 42 are also coming into the PU, so that's not a surprise. NPCs are being worked on to know when cover is destroyed, so that they're using suitable cover. Again, it's the same thing as for the Persistent Universe. The animation team saw further player interaction moments, such as interacting with levers and vehicles and clothing being worked on, along with the feel of zero-G movement, and they created the additional first select animations, which are used when you get a new weapon. I like the feel of zero-G right now, and anything that makes it a little bit more smoother, less janky, bring it on. The social work team continued to go through the multiple chapters, focusing on placement and the creation of life animations to give the feeling that the ship you're on, or the location you're in, is a living, breathing area. The motion capture gameplay team supported gameplay and story elements and completed a shoot for a, quote, new enemy class. I'm curious as to see what that is. Is that going to be one of our alien races finally, or is that a new class of human enemy? Sound off in the comments which one you'd like it to be, but I'm leaning towards more of the alien at this point. I need to see more aliens added into the game. They also discussed how to leverage the motion capture team's experience in solving and retargeting issues to improve burn down in other places, and Vandal facial animations were worked on as well and progressed, along with various animations for tier 2 story characters and the player character as well. The gameplay story team continued polishing characters in Chapter 1, including fist bumping, looking at the player, fiddling with turret buttons, walking off with their helmets. Chapter 4 saw improvements where player choice was added to the beginning, along with new idle and abandon animations. A key meet scene was overhauled with updated motion capture to make it more robust, and idles and exit animations were improved for a further scene. New audio was added to scenes in chapters 4A and 5. Chapter 4D, a scene in Chapter 4D, was updated to account for a new console position, and a console animation was repaired in Chapter 14. And several new scenes were created, including a hiding survivor, a conversation in the mess hall, a forklift moving truck, a medic healing the player, and a deck crew inspecting the Gladius. The level design area saw the social design team continuing to work on focus chapters. Aside from addressing review feedback and fixing bugs, they were also implementing fail states, looking at objective markers, emails, ship chat checkpoints, Galactopedia entries, etc. This was an opportunity to clean up loose ends with various scenes, and new motion capture was used to improve several scenes where the narrative content played out well but didn't close out as cleanly as they would have liked. The narrative team continued to work on their remaining tasks for Squadron 42, reviewing tasks to make sure they present a comprehensive list, but are also able to see if there are any that can be tackled without waiting for the other teams. They continued to sit on playthroughs of levels to get the other team's feedback. They continued writing Galactopedia entries and worked core gameplay to define where these entries will appear in the levels. They worked with several outsourced freelancers to develop collectibles that will be scattered through the levels to find. And a new test bed was developed in collaboration with the gameplay and audio teams to test the dogfighting combat experience and make sure that wild lines for the various pilots in these fights will trigger correctly. This will provide an in situ environment to ensure that technical setup is working, with the various gang personalities will come through in the way they talk as well. In the R&D department, this is the same as the Persistent Universe update, with working on the volumetric cloud rendering and the progress on the temporal rendering mode. No need in going over this again. It's the same from the Persistent Universe update. And for the tech design team, they worked on integrating the new AI flight behavior from the Persistent Universe to Squadron 42, a case where things are going in the opposite direction to normal, and they began improving various combat encounters, fixing bugs, making improvements to interactables across multiple chapters. Terminal screen interactions were polished in Chapter 1, new UI art was implemented, and the interaction flow was streamlined. And finally, the VFX team continued to work and support with art, design, and cinematic teams to make sure that several of the cinematic scenes are reaching edit lock, which means the camera positions are finalized and the VFX artists can dial in the effects to match the shots and get them closed out and finished. And there we have it, folks. The quick brief update on the status of 323. A quick brief look at Star Citizen Live, which again, link in the description below. I suggest that you go check it out for yourself. It's worth a watch, just not something I can really cover. And both the Star Citizen Persistent Universe and Squadron 42 updates for the month of May. This year has been a good year for Star Citizen. We are really starting to see the progress move along at a brisk pace, far brisker than we've seen in development up to this point. Squadron 42 being feature complete is certainly showing off how this game is coming along and allowing them to really start knocking out the builds and letting us get our hands on it and trying it out. I look forward to what the future brings with this game. I hope you do. Sound off in the comments if you do. If you like this game, you give it a try. Use my creator code and get some free gear, some free money to help you out, in-game money to help you out. If not my creator code, use someone else's. It doesn't really matter. Yes, I'll get the same amount of money in-game. I don't really care. If it helps you guys, then go for it. I would have done the same, but I backed before the creator codes came out. In the meantime, if you enjoy my comment or my content, give me a thumbs up. If not, give me a thumbs down, like always. Sound off in the comments below about Star Citizen and what you think, what you're looking forward to, what your favorite ship is, where you want to see any of the systems go, what direction of development you'd like to see. Again, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Subscribe if you're new to help me grow this channel and beat the YouTube algorithm. I have been having some extremely low numbers on views this past week, which don't make sense compared to what I've had before. It's once again, this algorithm has changed. Commenting and subscribing is what helps me best, and it is absolutely appreciated. Until next time, I've been RageEgg Games, though, and I will see you in the verse.